Michael, good to see you.
You as well.
Thank you for making a bit of time, because I know you're busy, for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I appreciate that. I I thought I'd start our conversation off by asking you about something that you flagged up when we were talking. I think it was last week, maybe, or the week before.
Mhm.
You said, it's the quote that stuck in my mind. You said, "We're building your AI clone."
Yeah.
Well, now that's an interesting. It's quite an interesting statement. I mean, what did you mean by that, and why would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we've built out is a tool that allows people to upload their knowledge and it will train an AI based on that, which you can then deploy as, your AI clone, if you will. So essentially your digital mind. It's you, but digitally, available 24/7. Um, so that people have more access to your knowledge, really.
Okay, and what sort of people would want that? I mean, just explain that for people, seeing as we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean it's really anyone who has something that they teach in a big enough audience for this thing to get used. So I mean, for me, I've been in the coaching space for years, and so I originally created this for my community. So I'm a coach in kind of the e-commerce space, and so I have a community who uses this for podcasters like yourself with your audience, utilizing if they have questions and they want to know
Yeah.
more about what you do and what you teach. Uh, Actual professors at universities and their students utilizing it. So really, anyone who has stuff that they teach and an audience or students that want to learn more from them can make use of it.
Okay. Now, let me ask you about something that's been since we spoke. I've been thinking about it since we spoke. So I'm kind of old school, and for me, customer service is very important, and customer
Mhm.
service it involves talking to a human. Now,
Yeah.
I know younger people perhaps aren't so bothered about that, but I mean, just give us an indication of how well would it compare with talking to a human? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So first of all, I think we have to understand that like the typical FAQ bots that you see on websites, for
Yeah,
example, for support and stuff, are a lot different than what this tool is. This is more for like education and teaching people
yeah,
uh, the methods that you teach, as opposed to like FAQ questions about like how do I sign up or what do I do here? And so it's quite unbelievably accurate because it's quite literally taking from the stuff that you upload in terms of what you teach, right? And so one of the biggest questions we have when people come on is like, I want to make sure it actually sounds like me and like has a similar
yeah,
tone. And it's never really an issue once they use it and test it because again, we're taking from the exact, frameworks that they've built out, the exact videos that they've recorded. And so it's transcribing that directly from them. And so it's always really going to sound like the person. Now, it's also by no means to replace the human at all. It's more so, again, to give people more access to your knowledge because obviously none of us are available 24/7. And so for me, when someone wants to ask me a question of, how do I properly find a product that's profitable to sell on Amazon at 2 a.m. and I'm sleeping or something, they can speak with this AI and it's going to give them all of the answers they need because I've uploaded my entire course into it. And so it's going to give them answers as if I were speaking to them. Um, and so that's kind of like from like a support internally. And then the external side of things is like if you deploy this to the public, say, you're a public figure and you have, hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram or something, they might put that in their bio, especially if they teach something and, you know, they're obviously getting hundreds of DMs a day potentially asking questions, whereas this thing can now kind of fill in for them. And again, not to replace them, but access to their knowledge more so. And as a result, people are going to want to work with that human more, right? Because like most of us who are speaking with an AI, at the end of the day, all of us kind of want to speak with humans to get that answer from them specifically because they know the most of about what they're teaching.
mm,
Um, but when people are using an AI and you're kind of getting a sneak peek into this person's knowledge in terms of what they teach, it's only really going to help people convert more to you as the human.
yeah,
If you do, say, like a one-on-one training or if you have an actual podcast kind of thing. So yeah.
And I guess the other, I mean, this reflects my bias. I mean, because I like talking to humans, I mean,
Yeah.
I forget that humans make mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
great thing about your technology is that, of course, it's 100% accurate. I mean, as long as the data that it's sitting on is accurate, it will respond in an accurate way, won't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not like an old fellow like me that's got a terrible memory and can't remember what you said yesterday. It's a
Yeah,
bit like that.
it'll have a perfect memory for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So let me ask you, where did the idea come from? Because I mean, I actually, although I'm old enough to remember human to human customer service, I do get that a lot of people, particularly younger people, they don't care about talking to it. They're quite happy to deal with AIs. So I get that it's valuable to people. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, it came from essentially me building out for my community. So, like I mentioned, so I've been in the e-commerce space for kind of 6-ish years. I've been selling products and building brands on Amazon specifically. And I built a coaching program about 4 or 5 years ago, teaching people how to start their own Amazon brands as well. And so now I have a community on school where, we do group coaching, we have one-on-one mentorships that we do. And in the community, I just thought I'd love there to be a way where, my students could have access to me 24/7. Um, and that's how this idea came to be. So I hired a developer to essentially build out my own internal GPT and trained it on my entire course, all of my PDFs, frameworks, and everything. And once I did that, I was like, this is something that every coach or creator should have in their community, because if you can make your knowledge more accessible, why wouldn't you to your
Yeah.
students? And so and so the idea for the actual platform, which is called MentaraIQ, we built it because it's just essentially allows coaches and creators, podcasters, whoever, to come into our platform and create their own AI bot in quite literally like minutes, as opposed to hiring a developer. Or, of course, you could do it yourself and vibe code this out and
Yeah.
deploy it, but nonetheless, it would still take longer than what we've done, and everything's already built out now.
And
So
how have your community responded to it? I mean, there's
yeah,
presumably,
it's great. I mean, again, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, why would they not use it? So
yeah,
yeah, it gets used quite a bit in the community when I'm not available, or really whenever. Even if I am available, people might want to speak with it and just ask it a ton of questions. Um, so yeah, the feedback's been good because, again, it's just trained on everything I know. So that was the nice thing. There was no I didn't expect there to be any sort of like pushback or like this doesn't work, because the whole concept and idea of it was, it is quite literally my digital mind. So it's just me available 24/7.
yeah.
So it's been great. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great idea. It must have been a bit of a challenge to get it all up and running.
I mean, it wasn't too difficult. I mean, I say that because I'm not a developer, so I wasn't the one developing it necessarily. But I mean, we had a clear idea in terms of what we wanted to build, and obviously the building never stops. We're always iterating and changing things as we get more and more feedback. But the build wasn't too bad. No, it was we had a clear idea of what we wanted. The nice thing is that I had tested it in my community first too, so we kind of just copied it based on that. The main thing that we had to build up though was, of course, just like the platform to allow people to build this for themselves. Um, so it took, I mean, the first version of it was probably done within a few weeks or a month or something, but just yeah, a lot of iterations that are still ongoing to this day.
Mm. I mean, just to pick up your point about iterations, I mean, my experience is that business are always evolving.
Right.
They're always changing as customers want different things, the technology upgrades, whatever. There's
Yeah.
always something there's always a moving part, if you like.
Mhm.
I mean, how do you keep focused on the right problems? I mean, I was reading somewhere a little while ago that somebody said that businesses fail because not because they don't fix problems, but because they end up fixing the wrong problems. I mean, how do
Mhm.
you make sure that you're focused on the right problems?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what's been super helpful in the beginning is, as we brought on our first initial users, is identifying patterns between the feedback from each of them and I think the main part is also, like you said, it's like, which pieces of, feedback do you take into account and actually change with your
Yeah.
product?
Yeah.
And I've kind of how I've dealt with that right now is because we have early users and not a ton. If we're getting, you know, a few people saying the exact same thing, then for sure it's probably something to look into. But if it's something that's very particular to that specific client and no one else has requested something like that, then we probably won't, take that into account and actually change the product based on that. So it's really just listening to the early users and are multiple users recommending or asking, can we add this? And if so, then yeah, maybe it's something we consider and look into. But if not, then it's probably not something we would do. And also just asking the other users as well. It's like, hey, this person mentioned this. Do you feel this would be of use to add on as well? So just really listening to the early users and also our intuition too, right? Because I am quite literally the ICP that this was built for. Like I built this for myself. So I have quite a good understanding of what I would like in the tool as well. And so that has helped a lot too, because I'm the customer profile of this tool.
And as you've been developing, I mean, what sort of challenges have you faced? You faced?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest kind of a challenge, but just timeline on adding new features and iterating things that users want and stuff. I'm very obsessed with doing things extremely quickly. And so one of the challenges, I guess, is, things obviously take time, which is normal, but sometimes longer than we might think, and there's a lot more testing involved. Um, so that's one of the challenges, just like improving things quickly, but when we do improve upon them, yeah, uh, they may not be able to be used right away because there's still testing going on. Other than that, I would say getting, honestly, the biggest challenge has probably been getting users to actually push it and use it as much as
Right.
I'd want them to.
And why
Uh,
is that? Why has that been a challenge? Because it strikes
yeah,
me that the great thing about your product, I remember
yeah,
thinking this when you were talking about it, is that it kind of takes a big headache away. I mean, if you're a one-person training business, a one-person coaching business, and you've got a lot of audience that want to interact with you, I mean, you can't really do the coaching that you want to do and interact with your audience, can you? So
yeah,
it seems to me it takes a really big headache away. So I'm surprised to hear you say that you can't get them to use it.
yeah. It's honestly from a building out standpoint as well. Not even like once the tool is built, getting them to deploy it. That's usually fine because it's to deploy it to the audience and stuff is super easy. But getting people to just so I'll take it back to when we were actually offering it for free in exchange for feedback. That's when it was actually more difficult. And I think because it was free, people didn't prioritize it over the other things that they had going on in their business. And so when I said, hey, we'll do this for free, I'll build it out for you. I just need you to send me the content and then I can do it. That was difficult because it was free. I don't think they prioritized it. And
Yeah.
so asking them for the content so I can build it out would take like multiple reminders, which was just super interesting to me because I've never been in the software space or AI space. And so it was a challenge that I had not really dealt with before. Um, so that has been interesting. It's like getting people to just simply send over the content so we can build it out, which is very interesting because for our first members, we're also handling all of the build out, even though the platform that we built is for people to just do this themselves. That's the goal eventually. But it's been interesting and it's good feedback to understand because if it's going to take someone a week to send me content when they really need to sit down for 20 or 30 minutes to send it over, then it's like, okay, well, we want to make sure that this platform is extremely easy to use so people don't get caught up in delay and delay. But I've just found yeah, working with business owners is a bit of a different game just because, they have so many things going on at once. And so if they're not seeing this thing adding value to them right away, then they might not prioritize it. But I did find one of the things that led to that was again, it being free in the beginning, which makes sense because this
Yeah.
free, they don't value it as much. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And what sort of opportunities do you see going forward? I mean, it seems to me there's lots of use cases for it. I know you've
Mhm.
got a particular bunch in your sort of in just in your sites at the moment, but there's
Yeah.
lots of ways to use it. I mean, what do you see? How do you see the opportunities going forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest potential opportunity is with universities and just education. I, our focus is and initially was also just mainly coaches and creators, kind of similar to what I do, teaching people stuff online. But it was probably about 3-ish weeks ago. I literally remember the moment. I was just sitting in bed and I thought this would be interesting for, schools as well and professors deploying this to their students because obviously professors are not available 24/7 either, and they have a ton of students. And it was interesting because I thought of that. And then the next day, we booked a demo with someone, and she had kind of a career online coaching business, but
Right.
she was also a professor. And she said to me while we were on the call, she was like, I think I'd actually see more of a use case for my students at the university where I'm a professor. And I was like, that is so interesting because literally the night before I was thinking about using this for professors and you just, mentioned this. And so from that moment on, we've started to chat with a few universities and stuff like that too. So I do think that is a really big opportunity. I just don't want to split our attention too quickly. I think our focus
Yeah.
is still going to be on coaches and creators mainly for now. Um, but the university side of things would be a big opportunity. There's just a lot more red tape around it, and the
Yeah.
process to get something like that integrated into schools is obviously a lot more timely compared to hopping on with a coach, showing them a demo for 10 minutes, and them saying, "Yeah, I'm down to try it out," and they come on board.
Yeah.
So,
And I
yeah,
guess the decision making to buy
yeah,
it is easier if you're just talking to a business owner than it is to a university where they'll
yeah,
be
exactly.
committed before
Because
they
it's
start
it's
spending.
it's also just, for them, it's like, well, we'd obviously want the school to pay for it, which is fair, but it's not even really that either. It's just like first getting the school to even allow something like this to be used. That's been the biggest kind of holdback. But yeah, I don't know. It's even a thought in my mind of like building out a smaller separate team just to focus solely on universities because again it's just going to be such a bigger project and much longer timeline on something like that, but I do think that is quite a big opportunity, and the feedback we've had from probably 90% of the people we've spoken with in terms of professors has been quite positive.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're going to, if you're a university professor, your technology is going to take away a headache. So there's,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
there's
exactly.
it's a painkiller as it were, isn't it, for people?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I mentioned to one of the professors that I was telling you about who was not super keen on the idea, um, for the reason that students would abuse it and use this too much and not come to class. My thinking, along with, some of the other profs that we spoke with, is that, well, students are going to continue to use general LLMs like GPT or Claude
Yeah.
to ask questions. And that is obviously going to give a lot of answers that are not specific to your curriculum in terms of what you're
Yeah.
teaching. Of course, there's overlap, and yes, there's lots of good answers. But I would think, if you're a teacher, you'd probably want more of the answers to be pulling specifically from what you teach exactly. And
Yeah.
so why not, have something like this integrated into your class and encourage your students to use this over general LLMs because it's going to give them
Yeah.
the answers that are quite literally specific to what you teach.
Yeah, I mean, you should come and talk to the Open University of the UK actually, because they're very specific about
Love to.
the particular textbooks that they expect students to use. They're
Yeah.
quite strict about that
Yeah.
because it's all distance learning and they're very strict. So for them, they don't want people going off referring to
Yeah.
lots of other stuff for the reasons you've just outlined. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So what does, I mean, just, I know you're at relatively early stages with this. What does success look like to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in my mind, from my like personal goals, I would just like to be, I mean, to be pretty candid, my initial goal is honestly just to get this platform to 50K MRR by um, end of this year, which is a pretty aggressive goal. Um, but from a more general standpoint, like a user standpoint, success is more so to me of the actual users, the students of the people that are bringing this technology into their communities. Is this actually being used, and actually getting people to convert to their paid offers potentially too? Because a lot of people who are using this on like more of like the public facing side of things, the goal again is to have someone click their AI, speak with it, and understand that, oh, this person really knows what they're talking about, and I'd love to learn more from them, and book a call with them, and then end up working with them one-on-one. So the goal is to have potential prospects help convert better, and also again from an internal standpoint for people who are using it for their communities to actually take a load off of what they do, and give more access to their knowledge. That's the biggest thing, just like more accessibility to creators' knowledge. So
Yeah.
that's like my personal goal from like a monetary standpoint, and then the actual tool itself, like what is my goal with that? Is that
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you frame it that way because, I mean, what you're talking about is one component to it is customer service, if you like,
yeah,
responding to
for
requests and
sure.
queries. But you're also essentially suggesting that it plays a role in sales.
Yeah, it really should, because again, if I just give an example based on what I've done so far,
Mhm.
I've posted a ton of free content every single day for the past 4 years about selling on Amazon and tips and tricks and whatnot. And that has been, probably the reason why 90% of the people that we work with us and have signed up and paid us to teach them, is because I give so much free value.
Mm.
And so this is another angle for them. This is a ton of free value. This is your digital mind that people have access to 24/7. And so if someone's speaking with you and they're seeing, oh, this person really knows what you're talking about, and you have an offer where you do one-on-one mentoring or group coaching or something, it should help convert them that much more,
Yeah.
because it's again just another kind of level of free content, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and we've built in for like the public facing AIs, we built in CTAs into it as well. So if someone's like speaking with your AI, you can essentially like choose the frequency of when you want it to send a CTA. So if someone's speaking with me and asking questions about Amazon, after about 5 questions, it might say, hey, seems like you're interested, book a call with Michael or join his free school
Yeah.
community or whatever. So there's CTAs involved in the public facing ones, which in turn are actually for conversion reasons as well. So
Mm.
yeah, it's kind of, those are the two angles, like internal support and then educating prospects more so to help them convert.
Yeah. And let me ask you about something you talked about. I mean, you talked about giving away a lot of free value,
Yeah.
and that helps convert to sales. Now, just explain why you think that works, because I hear that a lot. But I also hear that sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it obviously works in your setting. I mean, why do you think that that works? Because it's an odd thing, isn't it? Giving loads of stuff away to
Yeah.
get people to come to you and say, "I'm going to buy something." I mean, it's just an odd piece of logic there. I mean, what's your take on why that works?
Yeah, I think because anyone who's giving away a lot of free value is not giving away the entire business model in terms of what they teach. And most people have an understanding that if you're going to start an Amazon FBA business, or if you're going to start a podcast, or if you're going to start a clothing brand, there's so much involved that is not being told in the free information, or at least you're going to have to piece together all of these free, kind of value videos in order to understand, oh, this is step by step how you do it. So anyone who's like a creator or coach online, their audience is typically going to understand that behind their free content is a full-on, whether someone like myself has a full-on course, or a full-on course plus, like we do one-on-one, as do tons of other, kind of coaches online. And so it's them getting a sneak peek into our knowledge and what we teach, and understanding that, oh, I'm learning a ton just from the free knowledge. Like, imagine what I could be getting from the paid stuff. And
Mm.
so that's really it. It's just like they're getting a sneak peek into your knowledge, but they understand it's not the full
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
interesting approach that I think.
It is interesting because I know a lot of, I've had the question from a lot of people in relation to our AI tool saying, well, if I upload all of my content, then why would they want to work with me? It's like, well, probably 99% of people are still going to value working with probably more so now than ever, value working with a human over just speaking with an AI. And so by giving all of your content into this AI, first of all, no one's even going to know all of the questions to ask for this specific business, because if they've not done it, then they can't know. And even if they're hounding it with questions and getting a ton of great knowledge, again, for most humans, they're going to say, damn, this person knows a lot about what they're speaking about.
Mm.
I'd love to work with them one-on-one as an actual human, as opposed to just speaking with their AI bot. So yeah, I really, it's not a concern to me at all. I think it helps, if anything. And again, I'm confident in saying that just because I've been in this space for years and I've given away
Yeah.
so much free value.
Yeah.
It's only helped ever.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting your point, though. The underlying point is that when you can get endless amounts of content, and when you can get AI to write your essays or analyze your, whatever, the
Yeah.
human bit suddenly becomes more important because the technology can kind of do everything else, can't it? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
bit kind of, all of a sudden the human bit becomes really important in a way that perhaps it wasn't before. I mean, I think education, for example, is going to be shaken up by that.
Yeah, for sure. I just think, yeah, I think for AI doing specific tasks that, a lot of people had done before, whether we talk about package designers or photographers and stuff like that, those are some areas where, AI has genuinely kind of taken over a lot of those things. I've noticed even just in my e-commerce business, like I don't hire nearly as many people to do creative tasks for me, for example. But yeah, when it comes to like an education and mentorship kind of point of view, I think that's become a lot more important because so many people are utilizing AI or trying to replace certain things with AI that people value working with the human one-on-one. And so that's the big thing with this tool is, like I said, it's not to replace people by any means. It's more so to just
Mm.
more access to knowledge. But I think as a result, yeah, again, it's not really a worry of it replacing, the coach themselves, because
Mm.
again, most people are just, value working with the actual coach, because they never really get it too. Like if you're a big enough creator or public figure or whatever it is, before AI even, like usually they would have virtual assistants or like people on their team who are going to work with you as opposed to the actual person themselves. And so it's always been a thing, really. It's like you're never really going to work with again, depending on the size of how big this person is, but oftentimes you wouldn't really work with them anyways. And so it's like now there's this additional layer of,
Mm.
now I'm speaking with an AI, I'm not even speaking with like one of their assistants. It's like they're going to value that human to human connection even more now. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think your point is well made. I mean, I think as we were just saying, the human bit is just becoming increasingly important because the
Mhm.
technology does everything else.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
it's an interesting change that's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening,
Yeah.
I think, quite quickly, actually. Let me ask you about being the CEO. I mean, would you say you're the face of the business?
Yes, yeah, I would say so. I may not be the one who's, behind the development and stuff, but yeah, for sure.
And how do you feel about that role?
Yeah, I mean it's fine. I've had a couple of different companies, which I still technically have, the coaching business and the e-commerce business that I started, years ago. And um I'll, basically it's just been amazing to start a company in a completely new field and learn so much from the previous businesses that I've started, which have allowed this to, you know, progress a lot quicker. Uh but yeah, in terms of how do I feel about being like the face of it, I mean, I don't mind. I started it, so it's my responsibility to be the face of it and
And what
represent it.
you mentioned the two previous businesses. I mean, what have you brought from those businesses to this business? I mean, what's the learning that you've brought from those experiences, and how does that play out in the current business?
Yeah, I think the probably the biggest thing that I brought over from that is number one, communication with early users. Now, technically, early users in relation to e-commerce was just like early customers.
Mm.
Um, in relation to coaching was, initial students that we brought on, and now it's early users of our kind of software. And so that was a really big thing I brought over, because I remember when I first started, I'll use the coaching business for example. When I first started coaching, before I had a team of other mentors and assistants and whatnot to help, teach our students, it was just me. And I was really, really big on like communicating extremely quickly with the students that I did have myself, hopping on calls and just fast response times and stuff like that. And I've noticed that has been extremely useful in this business is having our early users who are the interesting thing is like the difference in pricing doesn't really change how much someone wants to communicate with you in that like our coaching might be thousands of dollars where software is like right now it's $40 a month for us, but the people who are paying that are still like super obsessed with like wanting to figure out like what's going
Yeah.
on, I need help here or whatever. So that's been an interesting lesson.
And how
But
do you, I mean, that's an interesting conundrum there. I mean, how do you manage that? I mean, I've heard other people say
so
the same thing.
yeah, I mean, I think at least for now, just to finish the thought on like the communication aspect, even though it's such a lower price point, I know that they're extremely valuable, these early users, because they're helping shape how the product's going to look for future users as we grow and before we start putting money into paid marketing. And so, I mean, I don't care. I make it like a big part of my day and my time just to always be available to our users. Like if someone's gonna message me, I will respond right away. We had a few people message yesterday as we're doing like a big update on our whole thing, and things were down for like a couple hours. Just like being on top of that right away and being super communicative with the early users, I've found has just been super helpful in shaping the product and also just keeping users on and continuing to use it because they feel they have a sense of connection to
Mm.
the person who's built it, and they actually actually care about their feedback and getting results for them. So that's been huge, is communication.
That's going to be a bit of a challenge as you scale, though, isn't it?
So then of course as you scale, you're gonna have to, of course won't be me as much as it was early on, and I understand that. Again, those are lessons I'll take from the previous businesses, is where we'll eventually have customer support. We'll probably build out a customer support bot on our website that people can utilize. We'll build out instruction sheets. So again, going through the scaling from the previous businesses, we'll take those lessons into this one as well.
Mm. And how do you see the challenges involved with being the CEO? I talk to a lot of CEOs. I mean, most of them tell me that it's a bit of a roller coaster, good
Yeah, for
days,
sure.
bad days. I mean, how do you manage that?
I think the most difficult thing I've found is bringing on exceptional people and
Mm.
hiring the right people. Um,
And why has that been a problem? I mean, I know I've got a good idea what you're going to say, but just
yeah,
tell people
I
why that's
mean,
been a problem for you.
luckily for this business, it's been good so far. But again, it's because I've learned a lot of lessons from my previous businesses. But I think from like if I take an example from my previous businesses, is just like not asking all of the questions or the right questions to bringing someone on potentially, or just not even understanding from an early standpoint of like what questions do I even ask someone? Like how do I even know if they're good? And so there was a lot of people in the past with previous businesses that I brought on quickly just because I needed someone, and then it ended up costing me more time and money because I had to hire someone new and go through
So let
training
me ask
again.
you about that because lots of
Yeah.
people talk about that. I mean, so what do you do differently now?
I mean, I think now for me, I know what I prioritize most in someone on my team, which would mainly be similar to how I talked about communication. Like communication and response time to me is like, I don't know, it's just one of the biggest things that I've always been obsessed with, and I've just found it has helped a lot uh, with my success in all businesses. And so I know what I look for in someone. I know kind of the right questions to ask now, having gone through a lot of previous interviews and not asking those questions and learning the hard way. And so I've just, yeah, knowing the questions to ask. And I think also, this is probably not a great way to hire, but from just an intuition level, if I, like, for example, our developer, the first one we brought on, he didn't necessarily have more experience or know-how in terms of developing compared to the other people that I spoke with, but it was it kind of was from an intuition level of just like the way he spoke and the way he talked about wanting to come on board compared to others just seemed like he cared more. And so I mean I could probably just boil that down to knowing that's, understanding that someone actually cares in the way they're talking about it, as opposed to this is a transaction. I'm on your team to get paid, and that's why I'm working with you.
Yeah.
But if someone shows that they're genuinely interested in what you're doing and they actually care about what you're building, and that's a huge thing too. It's like if
Yeah.
you're not incentivized by money purely, which obviously everyone is, and that's important too, but if you're not incentivized that purely, then that shows that you care a lot too. So it's just, yeah, I think I've just had a better understanding because of
I
the
guess it's like
previous.
most things, isn't it? The more people you recruit, the better you get at it, and
Yeah,
you learn how to do it. I think
yeah,
your point about asking the right questions is really important, actually, because if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers.
yeah,
You won't get
yeah,
any answers.
yeah, exactly. I think like preparing for, uh, yeah, preparing and like spending time on interviews and like what questions you're going to ask this potential candidate is definitely like an underrated part of hiring, and just like we will spend a significant amount of time on our clients and whatnot, but and when it comes to hiring, we're like, oh, there's not like even though there technically is a financial aspect to it because we're paying them and whatnot, we just don't like we're in the driver's seat, we're hiring. It's not as big of a deal, but it's like you should spend a lot of time on the questions that you might ask them, and training them and whatnot to get a truly exceptional person.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I mean, again, not everyone agrees, but my view is that being the CEO requires quite a lot of commitment. I mean, what sort of commitment have you had to make, as it were, to get to where you've got to?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to just why I started my first online business in general, which was just the idea, although this won't really translate anymore, but the idea of building something for myself that will give me the freedom to do whatever,
Mm.
whenever, was kind of the whole reason I wanted to start my business. And the idea of working for someone else my whole life just, I don't know, drove me insane from a young age. I just could not fathom that that would be my reality. And so that's why I got into starting an online business in the first place. But the aspect about freedom is funny because it's like you do this with the idea that you're going to work less, but you end up working more than you probably
Yeah,
would with a
yeah,
9 to 5.
yeah,
But it's the knowing that, well, you don't have to. I mean, at this stage now with this business, I do because it's brand new. But as I built up the previous ones, those were probably more what I would say were lifestyle businesses in a way, where I really didn't have a big team. And once I did build it up to a certain level with a certain size of people on my team, which was like less than 10 people, um, I really didn't have to spend. I mean, I'm just speaking about it now. I don't spend more than a few hours a week on those businesses, really. But this is a bit of a different route, and in terms of commitment right now, it's like I don't know. When I want to build something, like I will, commit to it 100% and sacrifice anything I need to, besides family. Although I may miss some dinners, I might have to focus on my business. Like I just become very obsessed with the things that I build, to where the idea of like sacrifice or going through uncomfortable times for the next few years, like it's more exciting to me. Like I haven't started a new business from scratch for, 5 years probably. And
mm,
this is in a completely new field. And, I'm likely going the route of raising, which I've heard is a whole nother beast. And I
yeah,
think just from that, from that perspective as well, like having investors now on your team, where it's like before it was just me and a few other contractors, it's like there's a lot more commitment, a lot more responsibility. In regards to the investors as well. And so, uh, yeah, I mean, I'm planning to go all in on this. So, like, I'll probably, if we raise, I'll probably move to the US away from my family, go to San Fran. Like, those are the future plans. We'll see how things play out. Who knows? But,
mm.
um,
So
yeah,
I mean, that's a pretty big commitment.
yeah, for sure. I just, like I said, I love the idea of a new challenge, and like, I'm very excited for this chapter. And
Mm.
so, it's not something to me that I'm like, oh, this is like, damn, this is uncomfortable. Like I might be moving away from my family, moving to the US. Like it's very exciting to me, and I understand it's all temporary as well. And the whole reason I'm doing something like this is so that again, I can the idea of at least having more freedom and giving back to the people around me, is the whole reason why I'm doing this and why I started my other businesses too. But I've also, with that being said, I think just, as you start a business and you see the results from it, you get obsessed with building in general. And so it's just
Yeah.
from the
I mean, I share
change.
that. I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, it does become obsessive, I think.
Yeah, you literally do become obsessed with this. It's like the idea of the commitment is like if I needed to sell everything and live in a car just to like afford to be able to build this, like I 100% would. Like it's just, I don't know, you
Yeah.
become obsessed with it.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like you, I mean, I don't think I'd have ever made it as an employee, actually. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
doing my own thing. And that's the other thing I think about being the CEO is you get used to making decisions. Because I think one of the things that's really interesting about building a business is, yeah, and I'm not knocking academic learning, but if you go to
Mhm.
university, you listen to lectures, you maybe read stuff, you talk with other students, you write essays and so on. And that's all good. And you can learn from that. In a business, you make a commitment to something, you make decisions, you then have to deal with the consequences of those decisions,
Yeah.
good or bad, which
Yeah.
is a kind of a different way of learning, I think. And much, I mean, in my view, it's more powerful. I mean, when I've screwed up something, that matters to me far more than getting a lousy grade for some essay I had to write in university.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and how do you feel about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way of learning just because the feedback loop is that much quicker. It's like you're
Yeah,
actually having to go and actually do the thing instead of just like learning and then at some point you're going to do it. Because I think that's kind of like one of the biggest curses of aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to start their own businesses. Like you get so obsessed with learning and you feel like you're making progress because you're learning new things. Maybe you're reading self-help books, you're watching, people online about what they do, and like, oh, I'm, making progress, but you haven't even done anything yet.
yeah,
And so it's like once you actually start your business and you're actually doing the stuff and you're failing, it's like the feedback loop is just so much quicker because you're
yeah.
you're just doing it in real time. And it's you know it's harsh and can suck sometimes, but it's just like as long as you have an understanding that like failing isn't indeed failing. It's just like, feedback and you're learning from those
Yeah.
mistakes and you're continuing on. And yeah, it's just faster way of learning.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a second ago about being uncomfortable. I mean, one of the things I think that you have to learn to do is you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable being a CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of part of the territory, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think again, it's one of those, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I guess you get used to or like you grow a love for it in a way because again, you like understand that being uncomfortable is going to help you a lot with your success. And the more situations that you put yourself in that seem to be uncomfortable, the more you get comfortable in those situations, which will help you grow. And yeah, it's just
And
like
it
all
kind of, I
these,
mean, you use the word growth there. I mean, I think the growth is in the resilience.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I just think all these like feelings or like words that have negative connotations around them are oftentimes not negative or shouldn't be viewed as negative or positive necessarily. It's just like it's part of the learning and it's going to help with your growth. It's like if it's too uncomfortable for you to do, then your situation that you're in right now probably, you probably don't you're probably not dissatisfied with your situation that much if you're giving up that easily or something. It's like, but if you're wanting to change your current environment and your current situation in a significant way, then you going through uncomfortable times, is something that you'll probably push through. Um, so that's another thing too. It's like, why are you doing it? Because like for
Yeah.
me, it's like the idea of working for someone else or not being able to give background to the people around me or have freedom is like I'd rather not be here. Like this is I can't stop. Like so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I like about entrepreneurs is that they're pretty good at identifying when they screwed up.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the other thing is they recognize when they screwed up and then they fix it really quickly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you talk to politicians or people in government, I mean, they never admit they've ever done anything wrong. I mean, I was
Yeah,
talking to our local MP today. I mean, I mean, I won't go into the detail. I won't say who he
yeah,
is, but I mean, I was getting quite frustrated because he doesn't seem to realise that they're doing something really stupid. But
yeah,
whereas entrepreneurs, you have a contract and think, oh yeah, okay, I get that. We can do something about that. And I think that's
yeah.
one of the great things about building businesses is that the people that do that are much, much quicker to figure out solutions to problems. Because, of course, if they don't, they go bust.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think if you yeah, the first thing is like making sure you can identify that, oh, this was a
Yeah.
mistake and pivot at least. So yeah, as long as you can identify that and make the correct pivot, and yeah, like we said, it's just like the feedback loop in terms of like learning and
Mm.
pivoting in the right direction is so much quicker because you're actually just doing
Yeah.
the thing and yeah.
Yeah, and it's part of it's the norm as well. I mean, all the other entrepreneurs
Mhm.
are they know what it's like, so they're not surprised that
Yeah,
people
exactly.
correct.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, yeah, like you said, it's like, yeah, it's not a surprise. At least once you've gone through it a few times, it's like I'm expecting some, some failures or uncomfortable situations to happen. It's like it will happen, which is nice once you've gone through it a few times. 'Cause like you said, yeah, you're just not shocked anymore. You're just like, yep,
Yeah, yeah.
makes sense.
I mean, I think there are only two kinds of people on the planet. There are people that make mistakes and people that pretend they don't. I mean,
Yeah,
but everyone makes mistakes. You can't get away from it, I don't think.
for sure.
Let me ask you a bit about that. I mean, you seem to be somebody that values learning. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that's definitely fair. I think it goes back to, like you said, it's just like for most entrepreneurs, when you actually start the business and you're actually doing the thing and moving fast, you'll probably, like, I don't know, I always talk about the idea of failing fast as well.
Mm.
And so just taking insane action, and you will fail inevitably, but that doesn't matter. It's just a way
Yeah,
of learning. And that's fun. It's like acquiring more knowledge and learning is one of yeah, the most enjoyed things I would say in my life. Is a
yeah.
big reason
I mean,
why I do
there's
it.
a famous quote from Winston Churchill where he says, success is going from one failure to the next with no loss of enthusiasm,
Yeah,
which I kind of think really kind of nails it, actually.
yeah, I like that. I like that. I think that's the difficult part is with the loss of enthusiasm,
Mm.
because and I think most people who do hit those inevitable failures or brick walls or whatever you want to call them, hurdles, do lose enthusiasm, and
Yeah,
that's
it
why
can be
most
pretty soul
people.
destroying, can't it?
Yeah, and it's fair. It's like I don't think it is obviously meant for most people. Like it's difficult to build a business and stick through those hard times that will come up. But yeah, that is a great descriptor of really entrepreneurship even.
And let me ask you, was this, I mean, it's an odd career choice to say, from I'm at school to I'm going to build an online business. I mean, that's an
Yeah.
interesting, I mean,
Yeah.
is there something about wanting to be an entrepreneur that is kind of was with you early on? Because you're relatively young anyway, well, certainly compared.
Yeah.
I mean, did that emerge from your early experiences in life?
Yeah, I think there was a couple things. So one was I had I'm not really sure what shaped this, but well, I probably do know now, but I'll kind of give context. So I was actually really big into music production at a young
Right.
age. So I'd been making music for a while, and because I really enjoyed that, that's what I wanted my career to be, was like making money from making music and whatnot. And the kind of mentor that I had at the time, who was teaching me, he was like so all in on music, and I just really liked the way he thought about life, because he didn't really make, he didn't make a ton of money from doing this at all, really. And he still continued on with it and was obsessed with it. And he was just a very, very fulfilled person. And, from the traditional sense of like what most people would think of success, of like, oh, you got a lot of money and therefore you're happy kind of thing. But he didn't have a lot of money, and he was very fulfilled with what he was doing. And I just loved that. And so I became like very obsessed with music production and whatnot. And
Right.
applied for a university here in Vancouver and ended up like winning a scholarship to it. And him and I were kind of entering competitions and whatnot, and everything was going well. And the moment I went to school for it, I had completely lost my passion for it and dropped out, and like just cold turkey stopped
And why
music
did that
production.
happen? That seems like an odd, rather abrupt
Yeah.
thing.
And so I'm still unsure to this day, but I think the reason is because I went to school for it when I'd been doing it for like 4 years prior. Going to school for something that is so creative, and them, kind of structuring the way where it's like, we use these tools, this is our methodology, this is how we do it. I think I was just like, I've been doing it my way for 4 years. Like, well, I don't want to start all over. And so that turned me off, and I think that's why I dropped out. But the weird thing is that I could have just kept doing it on my own, and I didn't. I completely stopped. So I really don't know. It's weird. So that's kind of what developed my idea of like doing something for myself, because that wasn't obviously business by any means, but it was building something for myself, not in the traditional 9 to 5 sense. I think I then later realized, probably like 5-ish years ago now, that my dad probably played, I guess my dad and mother like played a big role in this idea of making money and, building something.
Mm,
And the reason why I didn't realize it previously was because my dad wasn't an entrepreneur, but he'd been a part of companies and,
mm,
larger roles and like, had quite a bit of success. But we never agreed back then. Like my parents were not on the same page. Like they didn't believe in what I was doing because it was new to them at the time, like starting an online business when I was 19, and having failed the first couple of years and whatnot. And so like we never really were on the same page in terms of success from that standpoint of building
mm,
something to make you money. But once I started to do well from that, obviously they then had a bit of a better understanding and that relationship was all fine. Um, but subconsciously, I think I did get a lot of motivation from my dad because he'd built he built a very great life for you know our family, my sister, myself, and my mom. And although it wasn't done in the entrepreneurial sense necessarily, he had still built a great life. And so I think that inspired me, but subconsciously, which I didn't realize until I was older. Um, that's probably like a big reason why I wanted to build something. I just, uh, the idea of working for someone together just didn't make sense
mm.
to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs they would say it doesn't make sense to work for other people. I mean, it's just part of the
Yeah,
way people are put together, I think.
yeah.
And you mentioned successes. I mean, what have you learned from those successes? I'm going to ask you about failures in a second, but what have you learned from
Mhm.
successes? I think they teach, the reason I'm asking is I think they teach people different things.
Yeah. I mean, it's then like a question of like defining success, which is still something like interesting to talk about. But I think if I talk about success from the, I don't know, the cliche way of making money or whatever it is, like that idea of success, of, does money about happiness and all that stuff, uh, having gone through like materialistic things or dream cars that I've wanted, like those things are very fleeting. It is true, but I think you have to go through that in order to realize that, even though people will tell you, it's like you need to experience it to realize it. So that's been interesting from like, again, a cliche standpoint of success is like materialistic things, the things that you dreamt of as a kid or you wanted are very fleeting and they're cool for a few months, but then you're like, well, on to the next, which is then dangerous because you're kind of going down this like materialistic path. Um, so I think things and materialistic things are very fleeting, but I think the big part of success and what I would value most is that money does help with, having more experience with your loved ones. And again, like it doesn't mean you have to travel and spend money, but like if it enhances those experiences that much more, you see joy from them because of this experience that you guys have had together. Like it is very fulfilling. But success, I don't know, to me has always just come down to after having gone through some of these things, it's like time spent with your loved ones and your family and like being able to give back to the people around you is like
Mm.
the biggest form of success in my eyes. That's what has made me feel most fulfilled, at least.
Yeah.
Um, but the success or having more money to enhance those experiences and have more of those experiences, again, like maybe that's traveling or something, is extremely valuable.
Yeah. I
And a
mean,
big
like
part
you,
of
I think it's better to have more money than less money, but ultimately,
Yeah, for sure. Like money is great. And even like when I talk about the materialistic things that are fleeting or whatnot, like those times that I remember having a certain car or whatever, it's like, no, that was very fun and I'm sure I'll do it again. But I do, what's interesting, I think, is stripping yourself of those things also to like reset your baseline.
Mm.
So I usually go through like, I mean, for the next few years of my life, I'll probably be very locked in and not really having fun with that stuff, as I build this. But it is nice because like you might have a season of your life where you're doing well financially. Maybe you want to spend some of it, have some fun, buy a cool car or whatever. But then you strip yourself of that a year after
Mm.
and it's cool because it does really reset your baseline to want those
Yeah.
things again. Whereas if you're like always just accumulating and accumulating, it's just like you're getting numb to life and you don't
That's a
enjoy
very
things.
interesting way to put it, actually, and I think there's some truth there.
Yeah, yeah. I've just found that was an interesting thing for me is like I would strip myself of these things that I always wanted and it would help like reset my
And
baseline.
let me ask you about the flip side, which is what has failure taught you? I mean, what have you learned from failures? Because there are, I mean, I don't know well, I don't know what your life like. I mean, there are daily failures in my life.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
what has failure taught you?
I think failure has taught me mainly the importance of resilience and persistence. Like I think
Yeah.
persistence is the most important aspect of and not the most important aspect of a business, but the probably like the number one contributor to why someone fails or doesn't is like, is that person persistent? If they are and they're doing one thing for a long period of time, it's very difficult to fail. Um, and so failure, I would say I love failure. It's a big reason for my success and many other people, because like we talked about, it's just like you're learning from these failures. They're just, lessons to be learned. And so I think my biggest failure earlier on was I lost like $7,000 when I was like 19 with my first, Amazon business, which was like pretty much all the money I had. Um, but again, at the time, it didn't matter to me because I was like so obsessed with wanting to build something. So I was like, okay, well, I'll work, save up and do it again. And so it's just like, yeah, the resilience of that, if you can get through failure without, like you said, the loss of enthusiasm, it's going to be very difficult not to
Yeah.
succeed. So failure is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And I
Um,
mean, and what sort of things are keeping you awake at night at the moment?
I mean, I dream about this this thing that we're building sometimes. Just like we got to make this change. Like
That
I'll
is quite
genuinely,
worrying.
yeah, I'll genuinely have dreams about it sometimes. But I mean, it's fair enough. I want to build it. I'm obsessed with it. So, um, but again, I don't. That's not. That's I don't see that as a bad thing. I'm just like this is what is consuming me at this point in my life. Um, I think the one kind of concern, I forget if you and I might have spoke about this briefly, is because AI is moving so insanely fast,
Yeah.
the the value of like building a software product in a lot of people's eyes, and I'm not too sure on this, has potentially gone down because it's like, well, why would I buy your software when now that it's so easy to vibe code things, I could literally, do this in an hour or a day or something, and I could just like own this myself and have it vertically integrated into my business instead of like using your software and paying you monthly. So it's like one thing that is always on the back of my mind as of late because things are developing so quickly. Like, is the demand, is that going to start to be an actual concern of like, well, I can just build this for myself? And I've had a couple of people, here and there say, I already have this or I'm building this for myself right now. But then it does go back to the idea of really any other service or business that exists of, well, restaurants, I could cook for myself, but I enjoy, going to a restaurant and having a nice experience. Or any other service that somebody offers of, I mean, even if you think about like mentorship, it's like, well, I could pay you, and then people will charge thousands of dollars. Like I could pay you thousands and thousands of dollars to speed up my success, or I could learn from free information online. It's like people are still going to pay the thousands of dollars. And so I think it's similar with software where it's like, yes, it is becoming easier to make it your own, but again, it's like people are always going to value the time of something probably more than anything of like how fast can this be integrated into what I do, and is there a clear benefit?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's a good point, that because there's a
and
cost. If you want to build it yourself, there's a
yeah,
cost.
exactly. And it's like, yes, sure, it is easier. The one caveat is it's a lot easier than it was to build software before, of course, and cheaper. But nonetheless, it's like you still have to know how to vibe code, and you still have to be creative enough to think about
Yeah.
how to actually build this and how to structure it and deploy it and whatever. And so the more I think about it, the less worried I am. I do think it will have a role. Like I do think software will not be as in demand as it was, and it will probably continue to lessen. But will that take away from the potential of building like a big software company? I don't think so. But that is the one thing that like is in the back of my mind. But again, then it always goes back to these other scenarios. I'm like, these things
But
can always
I
be
mean,
done.
what you're really talking about is the rate of change, isn't it? I mean, AI has speeded up the rate of change in the market,
Yeah,
and that's
for
it's
sure.
very difficult to predict where it will go.
Yeah.
Which I totally agree. I completely understand why that makes. I mean, not just you. I mean, I've spoken to lots of people that would say the same. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to know where the kind of AI is going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like right now it's in a bit of a sweet spot where a lot of software companies, in fact, are popping up, left and right and being acquired quicker than ever because they can be built quicker than ever. But it's like, does that then cross a threshold at some point where it's like, well, now because it is so easy, more and more people are just going to build this internal to themselves. Like I think Starbucks themselves, they just like completely got rid of like all of the softwares that they relied on and built everything in-house like a few weeks ago, I'm pretty sure, and saved themselves probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mm.
So, and that's a different scenario because they're a larger corp. But if they're doing it at some point, smaller people probably will too. So yeah, it's an interesting thought if it will get to that level again. It probably won't because you can make that argument for pretty much anything
Yeah.
that is,
Either
outsourced.
way,
But
either way, it's going to be an interesting couple of years, I think. One
yeah,
last question before we wind up,
yeah.
Michael. If you were to offer a bit of advice to, let's say, a rookie CEO wanting to do something similar to you, I mean, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would say first identify if you actually want to be a CEO or be an entrepreneur because I think it isn't meant for most people and it is extremely uncomfortable in the beginning. So at first, like, yeah, just get real with yourself. Like,
Mm.
why do you actually want to do this? Because it is going to be extremely difficult. And if your situation that you're in right now is so uncomfortable to the point where it's like you don't have any alternative of what you could think of doing besides building a business, and sure. But just like yeah, I would honestly just say like think hard about it, identify your situation. Is this something you actually want to do? Because if it's like you just want to make a lot of money, like you can make a lot of money working for other people and there's remote jobs now. It's not as traditional 9 to 5 as it used to be. So yeah, I think like figure out your situation. Is it something you actually want to do? And then if so, just be prepared that there's going to be, a lot of failures. And if you are persistent, you will very likely succeed. It's like persistence at the end of the day is, I would
Yeah,
say for
there's a
me,
famous US president that said perseverance is everything. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them said that perseverance is everything. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Michael,
yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
a great piece of advice to end the interview on. Thank you
Thank you.
for making a bit of time to talk about what you're doing. I think it's a fantastic proposition. I've always thought customer service is really important, and what you're enabling people to do is do that better and
Yeah.
use technology to do that better. So I think it's a great proposition. So good luck. I mean, thanks for coming to talk about what you're doing, and good luck going forward.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. See you soon, Michael. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.